In just 1 hour, the world's balance shifted. What just happened? The news broke like a thunderclap. America had made its move. This wasn't just a headline. It was a jolt that rippled through every capital, every trading floor, every military command center on the planet. Anchors interrupted their regular programming, their voices tense as they relayed the story. Social media exploded with speculation and fear. In London, Paris, and Beijing, leaders called emergency meetings. Stock markets plunged, oil prices soared, and gold became the new safe haven overnight. Fighter jets scrambled in the darkness, and naval fleets changed course, all while ordinary people watched their phones in disbelief, wondering if this was the start of something far bigger. The sense of normalcy vanished, replaced by a collective breath held tight. Was this a warning shot, a final ultimatum, or the first move in a new global conflict? As the world waited for answers, one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. This wasn't just a headline. It was a warning shot. America's move was bold and unmistakable, a rapid, large-scale military deployment to Eastern Europe, backed by the announcement of sweeping new economic sanctions against rival states. Overnight, thousands of troops, advanced fighter jets, and missile defense systems were positioned along NATO's eastern flank. Simultaneously, the U.S. Treasury unveiled a package of sanctions targeting key industries and financial networks in adversary nations, freezing assets and cutting off vital trade routes. The official reasoning was clear. Washington cited escalating threats, violations of international law, and the need to reassure allies. The message to the world was unmistakable. The era of strategic ambiguity was over. America was drawing a line in the sand, signaling it would not back down or allow further destabilization. For some, it was a show of strength and resolve. For others, a dangerous provocation. Either way, the move forced every global player to recalculate their next steps. The world was no longer watching from the sidelines. It was being pulled into the center of a rapidly unfolding crisis. But every move has a motive. So what forced America's hand? For months, the world had watched a tense calm settle over global affairs, a fragile peace held together by uneasy truces and back-channel diplomacy. But beneath the surface, pressure was building. Rival powers had been testing boundaries, cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, aggressive military exercises near contested borders, and a steady drumbeat of disinformation campaigns. In Eastern Europe, a series of border skirmishes and covert operations signaled that the old rules no longer applied. Meanwhile, America faced mounting domestic pressures, political divisions, economic uncertainty, and a public demanding decisive leadership. Internationally, alliances were shifting. New blocs were forming, old partnerships fraying. The global economy, already battered by trade wars and supply chain shocks, was teetering on the edge. In this environment, even a small spark could ignite a blaze. America's leaders saw the writing on the wall. Inaction risked emboldening adversaries and undermining credibility with allies. The decision to act was not made lightly, but the alternative, waiting for rivals to dictate the terms, was deemed even more dangerous. The calm before the storm had ended. The world was now in the throes of a sudden high-stakes escalation with no clear end in sight. For some, it's a rallying cry. For others, a red line crossed. As America's move reverberated across the globe, the responses were swift and dramatic. NATO allies, especially those closest to the new deployments, expressed strong support, framing the action as a necessary stand against aggression. Emergency summits were called, and European leaders pledged solidarity, but behind closed doors, there were murmurs of concern about escalation and the risk of being drawn into a wider conflict. Some nations, wary of provoking their own powerful neighbors, issued cautious statements, urging restraint and dialogue. Russia condemned the move as a blatant provocation, warning of serious consequences, and placing its own forces on heightened alert. State media painted the deployment as proof of Western hostility, fueling nationalist sentiment at home. China, while not directly involved, criticized the sanctions and military buildup, calling for calm but quietly reassessing its own strategic interests. At the United Nations, emergency sessions devolved into heated exchanges, with little hope of consensus. Global markets reacted with volatility. Stocks plunged, Energy prices soared, and investors scrambled for safe havens. The world was split between those who saw America's action as a defensive order and those who viewed it as a dangerous gamble. The stage was set for a new era of uncertainty. Is this the move that keeps the peace or breaks it? The world now teeters on a knife's edge, with every action carrying the risk of unintended consequences. Military standoffs are the most immediate danger. With American and Allied forces massed near tense borders, even a minor miscalculation, a jet straying off course, a misunderstood signal, could trigger a rapid escalation. Both sides are on high alert, and the margin for error is razor thin. Economic fallout is already being felt. Sanctions and counter-sanctions threaten to disrupt global trade, drive up prices, and destabilize fragile economies. For ordinary people, this means higher costs for essentials and growing uncertainty about jobs and savings. Meanwhile, the cyber domain has become a silent battlefield. State-backed hackers are probing for weaknesses, targeting everything from power grids to financial systems. A successful attack could paralyze entire cities or sow chaos far from the front lines. Diplomatic channels, once the safety valves in times of crisis, are strained to the breaking point. Mistrust runs deep, and the risk of miscommunication grows with every new development. While some hope America's bold move will deter further aggression and restore order, others fear it could spark a chain reaction that no one can control. The world waits, hoping for stability, but bracing for the unknown. When superpowers clash, it's everyday people who feel the first shockwaves. For millions, this crisis isn't just a headline. It's a new reality that seeps into daily life. Families watch prices climb at the grocery store and gas pump, wondering how far their paychecks will stretch. Businesses face supply shortages and layoffs, while investors nervously track the markets, hoping their savings won't vanish overnight. Security fears grow as news of military deployments and cyber attacks dominate the airwaves. Parents worry about their children's future, and students question what kind of world they'll inherit. The psychological toll is real. Routines that once felt safe, commuting to work, planning a vacation, or simply going online, are now shadowed by anxiety. Conversations at dinner tables and in classrooms turn to what-if scenarios as uncertainty becomes the new normal. The sense of control slips away, replaced by a constant, low-level tension. In times like these, the true cost of global instability isn't measured in headlines or stock prices, but in the quiet fears and daily struggles of ordinary people just trying to hold on to hope. Believe it or not, we've been here before. But the stakes are higher now. History is filled with moments when a single decision sent shockwaves across the globe. The Cuban Missile Crisis, when the world held its breath on the brink of nuclear war. The invasion of Iraq, which reshaped the Middle East. The fall of the Berlin Wall, which ended decades of division overnight. Each turning point reminds us that brinkmanship can spiral out of control, but also that restraint and dialogue can pull the world back from disaster. The lesson is clear. Leaders' choices matter, and the line between peace and chaos is often thinner than we think. As the world faces another crossroads, history warns us to tread carefully and to never underestimate the power of a single move. The world now stands at a crossroads, with several futures hanging in the balance. Escalation remains a real risk. One misstep, a clash at a border, or a cyber attack gone too far could ignite a wider conflict. On the other hand, back-channel negotiations and diplomatic pressure might cool tempers, leading to a tense but stable new status quo. Some experts warn of a drawn-out standoff, a new Cold War defined by arms races, proxy battles, and constant brinkmanship. Key flashpoints to watch include military maneuvers in Eastern Europe, retaliatory sanctions, and the tone of upcoming summits between world leaders. Will cooler heads prevail, or will pride and miscalculation push the world closer to the edge? The decisions made in the next days and weeks will shape not just headlines, but the course of history. The next move could decide the decade. Are you ready for what comes next? Thanks for watching. What do you think the fallout will be? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to stay informed on how this story develops, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We'll be tracking every move. See you next time.